I think the majority of the audience is very perceptive. They truly see things for what they are and how they happened. And, I have to applaud.
Well, welcome, Clint. Super excited to have you here with us today. We've been watching you all season on Married at First Sight. What has it been like watching the season back as yourself?
It's crazy. Just seeing myself, seeing everything like kind of being relived as the episodes come out it's wild. To even think like, hey, I did this thing. I was married. I took a chance and I did all this. And then just to like see how everybody handled their individual situations and kind of like worked through their relationships, and to see like everybody's individual hurdles that they had, that's the wild part for me. Is like I didn't get the background on a lot of the relationships as they were happening, except for like tidbits of it. And when you see like the minuscule details of like what was said, how people reacted, body language, expressions, and you take all that into account, and you're like, wow, I just didn't know like all that happened.
Yeah, I mean, before we dive into your relationship, I'm curious of which of the other couples was the most surprising to you? Whose story were you most like, oh my gosh?
Yeah, I mean, the Shaquille Kirsten story was pretty surprising to me.
Yeah.
Because from what I had seen originally, like they got along really well. They were super happy. Like Shaq was just elated, especially on the honeymoon. This was such a beautiful woman. And then all of a sudden they start to get into the depths of their relationship and how do they coordinate with each other throughout just the normal day-to-day activities in life. And that was a big flip that I never saw coming. But, as I see things kind of come out, I'm like, okay, now I'm starting to see like how this developed.
Yeah, that's got to shed a lot of light onto the situation. Was there anything like that in your relationship, in your story, where now getting to see the parts that you weren't there for, you're like, these things are starting to make more sense?
Um, no, I mean it really lives true to what I'm seeing, as the episodes come out. So yeah, I mean it didn't deviate really from the reality of what I experienced. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's
That's
true
good.
form.
Yeah. Well, how has it been? You're watching this story back, obviously, but so is everyone else, millions of other people, and they are, of course, commenting on it. What has it been like to see what people are saying, or have you been totally staying away from that?
No, I mean I definitely, read comments. I have, people going on social media and stuff like that and trying to tag me and things. I think the majority of the audience is very perceptive.
Mhm.
They truly see things for what they are and how they happened. And, I have to applaud, people that are watching it. I think they've probably seen enough seasons that they kind of see the typical of what happens or like cues in a relationship of what direction it's going.
Mhm.
So I think that's one of the most surprising things is, I didn't think people would catch on as to like truly what was going on in the relationship. And that was pretty cool to see.
What was the most perceptive thing that you saw online? Something that you were like, oh, either I didn't see that myself until I read it, or something you're like, yes, correct. That's exactly what I've been trying to get people to clue in on.
Yeah, I mean, it would be like random facial expressions
Mhm.
that you wouldn't see like coming from me, right? Because I'd be
Yeah.
like sitting on the couch talking to Dr. Pepper
Yeah.
and Pastor Cal. And so I would be responding, and then all of a sudden, like there's a facial expression. I'm not seeing that because I'm verbalizing with them. My attention and focus is to them.
Mhm.
And so like people are really like, oh, did you see that look? Did you see that? And like body language, facial cues, all those things,
Mhm.
you can't capture all that in the moment. And when you see it on TV, then you're really understanding like, oh, okay, now I'm kind of seeing where this is coming from.
Yeah, that's really interesting, actually. So, watching it all back and kind of just looking back at the point right before decision day where we are, what were you thinking? Where was your head at? What were you really thinking behind the cameras and all that?
Sorry, say it one more time. It cut out.
So, going back to like right before decision day, take us to like your headspace at that exact moment. Where were you? What were you really thinking?
Oh,
Cameras off at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I was just really trying to digest everything that had happened, right?
Yeah.
From the very beginning to the bitter end. Like,
Mhm.
is this something that can be sustainable? Do we see a future here?
Yeah.
Do we see something that we can even like continue on after decision day
Mhm.
and have somewhat of a successful relationship or build upon it in any
Mhm.
semblance? And so that's where my head truly was. It's just like we've gone through a lot, especially early on. There were some real challenges
Mhm.
with both of us,
Mhm.
and like just all the work that was put in and everything that we tried to do collectively and individually. What were those things that would keep us together or separate us?
Now, obviously, we're working through a lot of like attraction issues, especially early on. How was that for you to try and work through? Because I know a lot of people watching at home are like, I don't know if you can work through those kinds of issues.
Yeah, it's very challenging because normally you're courting somebody based on physical appearance is one of the biggest aspects in
Mhm.
you wanting to gravitate towards somebody or making that initial move.
Mhm.
And then you have the mental aspect and like how well do you guys jive together and things like that. So yeah, I took myself out of any preconceived expectations
Mhm.
because we're marrying a complete stranger on TV, right? So I eliminated that idea out of my mind, right? I try to
Mhm.
get that completely out and shift that out of my focus and try something new.
Mhm.
Try a new mental like space to put myself into,
Mhm.
and then look at it through that lens.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you being open and sharing your story with us on Married at First Sight, and I appreciate your time talking about it today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Anna.